Symbolic History Through Sight and Sound, 13, 1400, Pilgrims All. "25 years after Chaucer's death in 1400, and the Van Eyck adoration of the Lamb heightens the features of his world, the force of robed leaders, commoners, churchmen. I saw his sleeves purfled at the hand with fur. He was a fair prelate. In a landscape of precise spring, such human filling in of Gothic symbol as Dunstable, also by 1425, achieves in harmony. Yet what the proudest, earthiest, lustiest of those Chaucerian characters was headed toward was Canterbury, 12th century shrine of Becket, sacramental blue and gules burning in the vaulted gloom. From that time when even the popular burden was world's bliss, ne last no thrower.
World's bliss, ne last no thrower, it wit and went away anon.
It is of the essence also of the waning of the Middle Ages that the ground of Contemptu Mundi still sounds under Chaucer. This world nis but a thurkfar full of woe, and we been pilgrims passing to and fro. Meanwhile, English architecture, by a kind of skeletal adaptation, had reached from Canterbury toward the open clarity of a stately hall. First was early English, 1250, the lancet heightening of the Five Sisters window in York, just as English thought in Bacon took its more earthly, immediate way. Second, the decorated, as in this 1300 chapter house of Wells, generates out of geometric the curvilinear wreathings which would inspire French flamboyant, while in thought Duns Scotus led Occam to the empirical outwardness and spiritual intuition aimed at Renaissance and Reformation. It is no clearer on the surface how Occam's study of suppositio, one thing standing for another, with its hair-splitting, as of mobile confused distributive suppositio from immobile confused distributive suppositio, widens creed for a future Cartesian structure reared on causal reason, than how the marvelous involution of Lierne vault, culminating mid-14th century in Gloucester choir, can shape Renaissance out of Gothic. Yet the passage from Canterbury apse to the wide-windowed fabric of Perpendicular must emerge like the chord humanizing of music as a shift from otherworldly severity through sacramental purity and elaboration toward earthly vigor in the now nominal scholastic frame, from which the road is open to the 15th century perfection of a ceremonial space, as music from its Gothic resources brought the polyphonies of Dunstable. Here the Oxford Divinity School, smaller than the great Perpendicular cage carved out of the Romanesque choir of Gloucester. Thus followers polish gems from Chaucer's great mine, the Scott Henryson, that bright windy night after hail, when he made the Testament of Cressid. I mend the fear, and bake it me about, then took and drink me sprites to comfort, and armed me well for the cold thereout. To cut the winter nicht and mak it short, I took and quare, and left all other sport. Written be worthy Chaucer glorious, of fair Cressid, and worthy Troilus. From Siena and Florence to London, as here in Flemish Ypres, guild and trading life had reared civic halls, thronged by Chaucer's time with all his faculties, the merchant with his forked beard, determined to keep the sea open between Orwell and Middleburg, the sergeant of the law, quoting the statutes and cases since King William, and for whom all was fee simple in effect, those guildmen clothed in one livery, and churchmen in so many, bustling the belfried square. In poetry, too, as in the arts, the mundane style had been ripening over the north since the late 13th century, as in Rutebeuf, Dieu m'a fait compagnon à Job. God has companioned me with Job, when he wiped me at a swab, clean of all I had. This right eye that was my best, webbed and blind, has left me lost to grope my road. And now my wife has borne a brat, and my horse slipped on a slat and cracked his leg. The nurse is at me like a plague, grabbing money by the bag for baby's pap and souse, or he'll be back to yell in the house. A sentiment paired after 1400 in the second shepherd's play. I have more cradles to rock than ever I had, a house full of young fat. The devil knock their skulls flat. Woe to him has much brat and little bread. The lively details of sacred art. In the ground of self and earth denial, we are watching the rise of a vital antithesis, of self and earth as modes of Western assurance and power. In the age of Chaucer, they still claim the sacred embrace. Let us begin at the end, with the retractions the poet appended to the parson's tale. He besake you makely for the mercy of God, that ye pray for me, that Christ have mercy on me, and forgive me guilties, and namely of me translations and indeedingness of worldly vanities, the which ye revoke in me retractions. A list follows of most of his works, and many a song and many a lecherous lay, that Christ for his great mercy forgive me the sinner, that he may be known of him at the day of doom, that should be saved. In this proudest portrait of Chaucer's time, by the chief sculptor of full-robed human force, Klaus Slaughter's 1390 Philip the Bold of Burgundy is on his knees. With Chaucer, what he repents of is not simply what we would call sin, but the earthly fabric to which his commitment is so strong, the art he cultivates, the music of the tuba gallicalis. The backward-looking part of every Christian treasured an ethereal thinness, where sacred and secular dream timelessly, islanded in contempt of the world, the sensuous poignance of the real. English, 1330. No shrinketh rose and lily flower, that wheelen bear that sweet savour, in summer that sweet tide. Na is no quain so stark na stoer, no levde so bricht in boer, that dead na shall be glede. Whoso wool flesh lust forgone, and heaven a bliss abide, on Jesu be his thought anon, that there let was in seed. In Simone Martini's Ars Nova Italy, that distance is refined like an aesthetic perfume, of which Chaucer's 1370 Book of the Duchess distills a northern essence, reaching back past the romance of the rose, toward Chrétien's land from which no stranger returns. It is there, deeper than dream psychology, that the man in black reveals what we have already learned. Ye have lost more than thou weenest. Alas, sir, how? What may that be? She is dead. Nay, yes, be me truth. Is that your loss? Be God, it is ruth. And with that word, richten on they gan to strike forth. All was done for that team, the heart hunting. We have a sudden insight that the modes of joy and pain, the very modes of feeling, of being, shift like styles of dress. Medieval grief is sharp, fragile, enigmatic, far from the voluminousness of a 16th century sorrow. Its landscape of shadowed space, Del Piombo, did not exist in Chaucer's experience any more than a solemn music of chordal grief, Willaert, 1539. These realms had no more been explored than Columbus' America. Chaucer's first period, before the Ars Nova impact of the Florence he visited in 1373, looks to the older Gothic and chivalric. Let the fortifications of Carcassonne and 2 scenes of the chase, with O Temps Pascur, as vigorous a secular motet as the late 13th century offers, revive that Ars Antiqua. To shift from the Peterborough Psalter, or the Minnesänger delights of Walter von Tüffen, or from the fortifications of Carcassonne, to the city halls of Italy, here Siena, is to feel the sudden stretching of Chaucer's tetrameter in the House of Fame, when the line straight out of the Divine Comedy breaks in. O thought that wrote all that he met! Thus the eagle lifts the poet to a vastness where he loses the poem. In later works he speaks the fullness of pentameter. To Troy is come this woeful Troilus. Just so the Garridellas Caccia against the older motet, or the new horseman Guidericio, and then Cangrande against the old.